Well, hello and welcome again to Odyssey Book 1. And in the story so far, Athena is about to give advice, very important advice, to Telemachos, to tell him what he's going to do. And that advice, of course, then he spends the next quite a number of books up to the end of book 5 fulfilling. So this is an important passage here. And we were up to, we did this line here. Athena says, tomorrow, having called the Achaean heroes to the assembly, make plain to all a word, so speak a word to all, and let the gods be as witnesses to it. And he says, or she says, Anokthi, this is an aorist imperative it's from anoga, and they're adding the theta iota ending on, and the gamma in enoga then turns into a chi, gets aspirated into a chi. So this is the imperative. So bid the suitors skidnasthai to scatter episphera to their own houses, and bid bid your mother, if the heart hoi for her, if hormatai is keen to or drives her on. So if her heart is driven to be about to marry, could be a future infinitive, it could just be a repeated epsilon here for the sake of meter. So if she's still keen on marriage, Ito, let her go, this is from Amy Ibo, let her go apps back into the hall of her father, who is powerful greatly. So into the hall of her very powerful father. We don't hear much about this father elsewhere in the Odyssey. It's rather odd that if he's there, he's standing by and letting the suitors do all these terrible things. But anyway, despite that, he's supposed to be very powerful. And they, Tuksusi from Tuko, they will prepare a marriage, and they will artunio, they will make ready, they will make artos, they will make ready Edna, guest gifts, wedding gifts, polamala, very many of them. As many as is fitting, epi is a preverb with this hepesthai from hepamai, to follow after a dear child. Well, this is a stock phrase, presumably, but of course we've got to imagine that by this stage Penelope's probably in her 40s, and or at least early 40s, so she's hardly just a little girl about to get married again, but this is probably a stock phrase here. Hypothesamai is our verb here, and it means I will advise. So hypotithemi, I will advise, soy goes with the auto, to you yourself, so I will advise you pokinos, soundly, cunningly, so I will give you a piece of cunning advice if you will obey me. And here is the advice. Asas is from ararisco. There's the root ara. It's a repeated present, ararisco, with an iterative, but the root of it's ar. So having fitted out, we'd say, that gets it nicely actually, having fitted out a ship with akosi, with 20 rowers, a ship whichever is the best, go, it's an imperative, in later Greek that would contract to u from erkamai, go, future participle, being intending to inquire of your father who has been gone, Dane, for a long time. If someone of mortals might speak to you, or you might hear an ossa, this is connected with Latin vox and so on, but here it's just simply meaning, in Homer the meaning is simply a rumour, And generally that's the meaning of the word, a rumour, something which you hear. Or you might hear of some rumour from Zeus, which brings especially kleos, here has the meaning of news, connected with verb of hearing, that which is heard, so which especially brings news to mortal or to men. Protomen, firstly, else their imperative go into Pylos, kai eru from eremai, and ask glorious Nestor. From there go understood Spartan debt to Sparta, beside blonde Menelaus. For he came Dutatos, last of all of the bronze-kitoned Achaeans, so the bronze-clad Achaeans. So if you might hear, bioton, the word often means in late Greek livelihood or sustenance, and can have that meaning, but in Homer, but here it's just life, I think. So if you might hear about the life of your father and his noston and his return home. And then pair with a participle, although, pair for kai pair. For surely, although being worn out, so having your house worn out is really, although being worn out, still you would endure, and that's going with the arn, you would endure, you would bear it, any auton for a year. So if there's any sign that your father's still alive, then you go home and you put up with what's going on for a year to see what happens. You endure for a year, but if you hear of him dead and of him no longer being, so if you hear that he's dead and no longer alive, nostesas, having returned home then, in fact, into your dear fatherland, so it's so afterwards, then, having returned home into your dear fatherland. Now, qi is an infinitive, and in fact, sorry, no, this is in fact, these are in fact infinitives. It is an infinitive form used for imperatives. The sense of it might be, then we're going to get a series of these, in fact. We're going to get a series of these infinitives for imperatives, and it might be, because we have a list of instructions, the thought is that it is necessary, understood, to do all these things. So we'll translate them as imperatives. So this is from Keo. So pour a mound for him. So set up a burial mound for him. Kai epi, which is a preverb going with the terexai. And this means to pay the funeral rites. Polymala, a lot of them, as many things, hossa, as is fitting, and give, again infinitive for imperative, give your mother to a man. So find a husband for your mother. But when you have completed all of these things and you have done them, when you've completed and done all these things, give thought indeed then in your heart, in your mind and your heart, how, now unfortunately there's a page turn here, so how in your halls, we've got to keep the sutras in our head, how in your halls you might kill the suitors, and we get A and A, either with guile or amphadon, or openly. Nor, now here's this cray again, which is a noun. We have to understand the verb to be, nor is there need for you in any way. Okein literally is to wear or carry childish thoughts, so we might say to occupy yourself with. It's really a frequentative form from echo, in fact, was the original sense of this, but it's used to wear or carry something, to have something all the time is to wear or carry it, but here just I think to translate it just as occupy yourself with childish thoughts, since you are, esse for no longer Telemachos of that age.